How you doing? I'm Enzo. I think you guys might know who I am, some of you might not. Pro wrestler in the WWE for 6 years, two-time Cruiserweight Champion, embarking on a music career, Rosemary's Baby. The first music project comes out December 8th. I'll be doing a live show November 18th or 19th, that Monday in Whiskey A Go Go, Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, California, right after Monday Night Raw. So if anybody's out there, Survivor Series, I'll be doing something Sunday night and Monday night. It'll be the first ever post-WWE performance by myself. Looking forward to that. And let's bring on the questions for the realest guy in the room. How you doing?
All right, Enzo, thank you very much for joining us here at the London Comic Con. We're very excited to have you here today. I'm going to kick off
I'm going to teach you a little something real quick. Put that thing right there. Look at my hands.
Right there. How's that working?
Look at this.
I like that.
You hear that?
That works that's way better.
I use my fingers to make it so that my hand's not, my mouth isn't spitting on the microphone. You understand what I'm saying? So
that's much better.
So it sounds a lot louder, don't it?
That's a lot louder, absolutely.
Sounds a whole lot louder. I'm pretty good at this. I tattooed one of these on my hand in case anybody notices, you know.
I got to borrow this from you. It's a good...
That's commitment.
So life after WWE's been going pretty well for you here. You come out with your own album, now known as Real1. And how's your rap career going for you? How are you enjoying this new venture?
I've had the opportunity of a lifetime because of the WWE and the fans that I've garnered. Make no mistake about it, wrestling fans, WWE fans, they are the best fans in the world. They help me in ways that are unconceivable and unimaginable. They had my back when, you know, maybe it seemed like the world was crumbling down. I know what was holding me up, and I know that I owe them a degree of gratitude, and I'll never stop giving back to the wrestling community in some way, form, fashion, or another. You cannot anticipate seeing me in a ring, though. I am retired from in-ring competition to squash that early. I think that a lot of the times people forget that when you look at an NBA player or an NFL player, their career is 5 years, 8 years. 31 years old with the information we have now about CTE and concussions, things like that. I've been knocked out cold on pay-per-view, had my mother crying at home thinking I was dead. You know, luckily I'm here and I'm alive. I can still think. My knees and legs are working, not like they used to. But I'm blessed to still have a mind and still have a body that, you know, a lot of people in my business, you know, aren't fortunate enough to have as they have, you know, long runs. And my run was 6 years. Before that, I played college football, so my body's a little banged up. And I think if I didn't go out the way I did, you would have had to drag me out of that ring on fire. I would have never, ever, ever left. So this was a silver lining, a blessing in disguise for me to be embarking on a music career as I was anticipating that while in the confines of the WWE. So the music was going to be produced by the WWE, in essence, being my record label. When you know, I got the opportunity to get out here in the world as a free agent, I also had the opportunity to meet a lot of people, see people, and do things, open up my network, and take advantage of all the great fans, all the great people that I've met over the years. And I have a rollout plan I think wrestling fans are going to be very excited about. And when that rollout plan starts to take shape, I think everyone will be aware. I have a means to make everyone aware, and when that happens, it'll be really, really, really fun. I can't give away too much, honestly, but when you guys see it, you'll know it, and when you hear the music, it'll speak for itself.
And now music seems like a natural transition for you as you broke into the wrestling scene, primarily based on your promos and your work on promos. How much of the promos in WWE was you versus how much was scripted for you?
Well, when I was in the WWE, I had the luxury of working with Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, and he believed in me so wholeheartedly that I had the opportunity to write my own NXT material, whereas the other people that I worked with and my peers didn't have that luxury. So bada boom, realest guys in the room, how you doing? SAWFT soft, what do we got over here? Cup of haters, you know, 0 dimes, you know, all the stuff that I came up with. That was a blessing in due part to Dusty Rhodes and the mentorship I had with him. He believed in me and he would tell the writers, back off, let him say his stuff. But by the time I got to the WWE and I was on the main stage, a little story for you people. The night before I debuted on TV, on Monday Night Raw in Dallas at WrestleMania 32, the following night on Monday, I had ran into Stone Cold Steve Austin that weekend for the first time in my life, and me and Big Cass did Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast together. And the night before I debuted, I talked to Steve and I said, hey man, I'm debuting tomorrow. If you have any advice, could you give me some advice? So Stone Cold looked me dead in my eyes and he said, you have one job, boy, and that's get over. That's a lot easier said than done, ain't it? You know what I mean? Yeah, that's your advice, get over. But he alluded to a lot of things and he did say DTA, don't trust anybody. He said, when you start making it big, you gotta drive alone. You gotta not tell other people what's going on in your career. And I took heed to that advice, and from that point on, anytime I needed advice, I would pick up the phone and call Stone Cold. And when Stone Cold says so, you do what Stone Cold said so, you know? So my job was to get over. And the opening day that I was out there on Monday Night Raw, I went completely off script. So the script that they had written for me, I was in a side room pretending I was memorizing. Meanwhile, I was memorizing my own script because in the business of pro wrestling, I did what you call going into business for yourself. I went into business for myself because I did not big up and boast about my opponent. Because in wrestling, you want to make your opponent. Because if the Ultimate Warrior understand, if wrestling's scripted, the Ultimate Warrior is as good as his opponent, right? So if he's not beating anybody, he's not winning, right? If somebody steps up on this stage and they've never won a match in their life and I beat them, what did I really accomplish? So your job is to make other people big so that when you beat them, you look like you did something, right? Well, when I went out there against the Dudley Boys, I went completely off script and I buried them, as we would say. And when I got back to the curtain, the ovation was so crazy from the crowd and everything worked so well, nobody ever said shit to me. So nobody told me like, oh, you shouldn't have said that, or you shouldn't have went off script. Everybody was just more than happy to be a part of that night. And after that, you know, I took some lumps along the way at SummerSlam. Vince McMahon told me that I couldn't say Biggie Smalls' line because he didn't think the crowd would know the words. And I went against the word of Vince McMahon himself, and I went out there and I said, this match is dedicated to all the teachers that told me I'd never amount to nothing. To all the people in the building hustling, trying to make some money to feed their daughter, and all the people in the struggle, you know what I'm saying? It's all good, baby, baby. And then I picked the mic up and the whole crowd sang Biggie Smalls. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. And I can only imagine how mad Vince was backstage. But I proved him wrong, that the people would know it. And I started talking again right there, and then Big Cass started singing New York, New York off script. And then we got fined $45,000 for copyright infringement by the Sinatra camp. And the next day, I was told that I would get fired by Triple H. I got an earful, and I thought it was over. I was like, no, man, like, I just wrote my own death wish here by doing that. And then the next night, well, that same night I just got, you know, an earful from Triple H. That next night, you know, because Finn Balor tore his labrum and had to relinquish the Universal Championship, Big Cass was put in the Fatal 4-Way for that championship. In that moment is when I kind of realized it doesn't matter what I do out here, what I say, because either way, you're putting Cass in this match, and I'm standing in the ring with Stephanie McMahon in the opening seg of Monday Night Raw after SummerSlam, and they're chanting, "Oh, Enzo Amore," and I'm not in the match. What the hell's going on? So Fast forward, you know, I died on that hill. In my business, you got to pick which hills you want to die on. I chose to go off script that day, and I did die on that hill for a while. And then, you know, as me and Big Cass broke up, I told Vince that I wanted to join 205 Live. I came to him with my music. I played Vince my music. I sat down with the WWE head of music, Neil Lowy, and Kevin Dunn, the executive producer. We came up with a game plan where I was tweeting Conor McGregor. I went to the Conor McGregor-Floyd Mayweather fight. They put the Cruiserweight Championship on me in hopes of getting Conor to come bite and do a match with me for the Cruiserweight Championship. When that was falling through and it didn't look like that would happen, obviously, if anybody's a wrestling fan and watched, Nia Jax fought Alexa Bliss at WrestleMania for the for the women's title, and that was to turn me heel. So as a bad guy, I had a big gray area as a babyface and a heel. People couldn't really make up their mind at times, and Vince loves that. John Cena sucks, let's go Cena. John Cena sucks. Vince loves that gray area, but the game plan to turn me heel was to have me get caught backstage hooking up with Alexa Bliss by Nia Jax after using Nia as my heater like China. So this would really turn me heel amongst the people who saw me do this girl wrong. This would also turn Alexa heel, get her a lot of heat, and get Nia a lot of babyface sympathy. So that was the game plan, and to bring out Rey Mysterio in Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy fashion in a ladder match at WrestleMania and have it look like, oh my God, Enzo's going to get screwed out of a title like he did last year. Rey was just going to do a one-off, but I think he ended up doing the Royal Rumble the following week instead. And now he's obviously back with the company, but I don't think Rey was set to work with the Cruiserweight division. He wasn't set to be in 205 Live. It was just supposed to be, he came back for that one Mania match, and from there maybe he would do the heavyweight division or whatever, because I was supposed to retain the title and launch the music. So the first ever Cruiserweight Championship tour that we went on, you know, I was the last match I ever had. The first ever Cruiserweight Championship tour. So I think if you look at that in a nutshell, I got the luxury of being a part of NXT and opening up every single one of those shows, from the very first show we ever left Florida to going to the UK for the first time and doing a tour there and wrestling in the O2 Arena. You know, and then to finish my career with the first ever and only ever WWE Cruiserweight tour in the main event, to retain the title, to only be fired in a ball of flames the next day. I can't rewrite that script. You maybe understand why I'm so reluctant to give it a sequel. It's a cool thing to get walked out the door with a title around your waist, knowing what your last match was. I feel like I accomplished everything I wanted to in pro wrestling, more than I ever dreamed of. I did not even remotely close to, I was so lucky I didn't think any of that stuff would ever happen. I was obsessed with the Hardy Boyz as a kid. I wrestled them in WrestleMania. The noise that came out of that stadium when the Hardy Boyz came out, I could wrestle for another 30 years. I'll probably never hear it again. So I'm blessed. Mind's intact, body's intact. Now you guys know where we were going with the storyline and where we're at. So yeah, as far as the scripting goes, that was the question. I could talk all day if you haven't noticed. I didn't script a lot of the stuff, but basically what I would do on Mondays, when they would hand me a script, just like they do every other wrestler, containing your storyline, bullet points, I would hit it with me and the writers called the remix. I would give every script the Enzo remix. So if you told me, hey, the story is you're the bad guy, you're the good guy, and she's the, you know, damsel in distress, and you're supposed to save her, and he's gonna get, and then you write out you know, those points, I'm gonna tell that story in my own words. So I would rewrite every single script on Monday that I was handed at the arena at roughly around between 12 and 6 p.m. I would get a script and we'd go on air at 8 p.m. So I would rewrite that script, I would memorize it, I would go out into the crowd. Sometimes I would forget what I was saying, and that's when the magic happens sometimes. You know, when I said a couple haters, that wasn't scripted at all, and I didn't even have that in my mind when I went out there. I just said it because it made sense, and then it turned into a cup of haters. But I didn't say cuppa the first time I said it. I pronounced couple. But it's those organic things that happen. My little brother was at the mall, and he said that he was sitting there eating with his buddy, and his buddy went, well, what do we got over here? A couple haters talking about what I just said that week on TV. It was fresh in his mind, and I went, oh, I have something there. Because he told me that. If somebody else remembered that, that's how it works. In wrestling, if you're backstage and you do something like my dance that I would do and run around backwards and stuff, the first people I ever made laugh with that was my peers, the people I worked with. If it made them laugh backstage, it'll make people laugh in the crowd. So it's way harder to pop the boys in the back than it is to pop the crowd.
All right, at this point, we're going to open up the questions to you all in the audience. Does anyone have a question for Enzo?
What is your favorite WWE moment?
For myself? My favorite WWE moment for myself is when I wrestled in Madison Square Garden. It was crazy because me and Big Cass grew up going to Madison Square Garden shows our whole lives. My grandpa took me when I was a kid. I saw Bob Backlund get beat by Diesel in 8 seconds, right? Now, that was a valuable life lesson for me in wrestling because when I look back at pro wrestling, as I was in the locker room and I was backstage, I want you to think about what I took from that night. There was 8 matches on that card, okay? There was probably about 20 to 30 wrestlers in that Madison Square Garden show when I was only a kid. I was about 8 or 9 years old. There was guys who probably jumped off the top rope and hurt themselves that night, guys who dove out of the ring, guys who took a bad body slam, and they hurt themselves badly. The only thing that I remember from that night was Diesel beating Bob Backlund in 8 seconds. How easy was that for him? That's the easiest night of work a wrestler could ever ask for. When you watch Hulk Hogan go out there, and he just went like this, and people went nuts, there's a lot of money in that. The Rock, if you smell, and everybody says it with him, right? The Rock with the elbow, the dumbest finisher ever. Take the elbow pad off, right? There's a dance to that. Santino with the deal, right? These things, I realized when I was backstage, it ain't about wrestling moves. It ain't about jumping through the ropes, showing everybody I can work, all right? Write on the internet all you want about Enzo and his wrestling abilities. Thank you. It bodes well for me, trust me. What my job was to put a wig on, right? And when you kick me in the face, I take the kick and I go, and I fall. The wig flies in the air. All you people will laugh way harder than if I did a dive through the ropes, all right? So I realized in that moment at Madison Square Garden, looking back at it in retrospect, that 8-second easiest night of Diesel's life was the only thing I remembered. And my job as a pro wrestler is to make you remember me. How do I do that? The best way to do it is to introduce yourself. My name is Enzo Amore, right? I hit the whole deal and I introduced myself because there's people in the crowd that have never been to a wrestling show in their lives and they don't know who I am. So I make sure I introduce myself, and I run out backwards, and I run out different because why? I'm different. I put a little bit of leopard print on everything I wore. Why? Because when you're at Walmart and you see a shower curtain that has leopard print on it, you tweet at me, oh, hey, I saw the shower curtain and I thought of you. Exactly, you thought of me. I infiltrated your brain. You associate leopard print with me. These are marketing endeavors, all right? I had a different aspect and a different view on the business, I think, than anybody I worked with, and it boded very well for me. But I can't tell other people how to do what they did. But the greatest moment for me was Madison Square Garden for that very reason. Me and Big Cass wanted to wrestle at Madison Square Garden our whole lives, and we always thought we'd do it together, and we came up through the ranks together. And every time there was a Madison Square Garden show, Enzo and Cass were in Chicago. Enzo and Cass were booked in California. And we never got on the show, and it sucked, and I hated it. And then During the holiday tour, I got my first ever opportunity to wrestle in the arena that made me love wrestling. It was bigger than WrestleMania for me, and it was actually pretty nerve-wracking in comparison, weirdly enough. But when I did Madison Square Garden, everything happens for a reason, and timing is everything, and I have the utmost blind faith in my life and the way things have worked out and the way the cookies crumbled for me. And if you really look at the run I had in the WWE, I don't think you should second guess what I'm saying, but the first ever match I ever had in Madison Square Garden was a title match that I won. There was a reason why I never had a match with Big Cass, because it was meant to be me fighting for a title in Madison Square Garden that night, going over with my finisher and dropping Kalisto in front of Jimmy Fallon for 3 minutes. Jimmy Fallon's in the front row. I'm just dropping Kalisto on the guardrail going, "This could be you." Right? And then I turn around, I go, "Jimmy, this one's for you." And I turn around and Kalisto super kicks me and I fell into him. So everything happens for a reason. I was a heel that day. I had to go out there and make Madison Square Garden my home, hate me, which I didn't want that, but that's what I had to do. I played a character on TV, you know, it was a role. So if I was a heel, I tried to be the best possible heel I could be. Whatever Vince McMahon wanted me to do, that was my job. And when I was in this ring with Big Cass, the story is the simplest story ever told, right? Everybody, you could talk about wrestling moves and this, that, or the other. We're building a hot tag. We're making it so that when I get Big Cass in, this place goes nuts. That means I don't hit any wrestling moves. I go down when you punch me in the face. Punch me in the face, watch me fall. Because when I fall, the people are going to cheer for me to get closer and closer to Big Cass. And every time I get closer, the place is going to go nuts, right? The simplest story ever told. Little guy, big mouth, can't back it up, needs to get the big guy in to finish the job. Let's not reinvent the wheel. I had the easiest job, and so that's what I did.
WWE is kind of well known for having that constant touring schedule. With that, having a break from that, did you find it more jarring or relieving? And when it comes to your upcoming hip-hop career, is the possibility of a tour something you're super excited to get back into, or something you're a little anxious about getting back into the grind of?
I live right here, brother, on stage with a microphone. So that transition into hip-hop is something I'm extremely excited about. It's been a long time coming. Most people don't know my story as far as that goes. I was discovered as a rapper in New Jersey. I had never wrestled before in my life. I was a rapper before I was a wrestler. So when Enzo Amore walks out with a microphone and everybody follows along with me, it's a pretty seamless transition, if you ask me. I mean, it was self-evident back then what it is that I was, and it's, I think, even more self-evident now. I think that I don't want to mince what Phoenix was with who I am. Also, beyond that, you know, before I drop my music, I think people should know that I treat my music at times, but not all times, like wrestling. It's propaganda. Some of it's real, some of it's not. Okay, so I'll let people decipher that. But, you know, for me, the scheduling that I had in the end, I watched Neville, who's a good buddy of mine. Most people didn't know that either, thinking that me and that guy hated each other. He was my best friend. Neville had the hardest schedule in the WWE because he went to wrestle on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then he showed up on Monday Night Raw, and then he either got a jet, a rental car, or figured out a way to get to SmackDown because it wasn't booked very close. Usually they did 500 miles in between SmackDown and Raw. So every single Monday night, I would fly on to home or, you know, get a flight the next day. Neville was driving on to SmackDown, man. And I was watching him, and he was my partner. I drove with him on the road. And I was like, you know what? Like, when he wanted to, you know, go settle down with his wife and have kids and maybe potentially and live in the house that he bought a year prior, he had manifested leaving the company, and we manifested how he was going to do that with me. I went to Vince and I told him I want to work the hardest schedule in all of pro wrestling. I want to ease the burden from my best friend Neville here. I'm going to wrestle on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and I'll have the hardest schedule in all of pro wrestling. And I was the most televised pro wrestler in all of pro wrestling from my rookie debut until the day I left, which most people don't realize. And I was handed a microphone every week, which means Vince McMahon is putting the lifeblood of the company on your hands. All you need to do on a PG product is to slip up, do something bad, say something wrong. They got to trust you. So Vince trusted me, and they had me out there more than any other superstar, and I was blessed with those opportunities, but it takes its toll. It takes its toll. And the time I spent on 205 Live was the best time I had ever had in my career on camera, but that life that you saw as a heel portraying on camera and things of that nature, you know, I really lived it. I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke like I am who you think I am. If you see me out at the bar and you go, Enzo, you want a drink? I'm going to go, hell yeah, brother. Let's hang out. You know, my life was different than the other wrestlers. I can't compare walking in another wrestler's shoes compared to Enzo Amore's, because when Enzo Amore goes to the bar, he's never alone in a city where he has a wrestling match. If we're in Chicago and I have a wrestling match there and I'm at the hotel and there's fans waiting outside for me, and there's no fans for maybe, you know, one of the wrestlers who wears a mask and nobody knows who he is, you know, I wore it. I owned it if I was out and I wasn't covering up. It's hard to hide that beard, this crazy hair, these hand tattoos. So when people saw me out, I never ever say no to a picture, which is a Hulk Hogan rule. And I never say no to a picture. So if I was out, I owned it. And there's some dangers that come along with that, obviously, as we've seen. You go out there and you live that life, you understand when I'm in London, Ontario, I don't know you. So if you tell me your name is Bob, I'm going to take your word for it. Your name's Bob, right? Well, you're going to meet women along those lines too. So, you know, you got to live carefully. You know, I really lived that Ric Flair lifestyle, though, when I had the Cruiserweight Championship, but my body paid for it. Not so much my mind, because I was loving life, but I was having a hard time getting out of bed every morning. I was having a hard time working all these matches and driving, because I drove alone. I drove alone probably the last 6-7 months, a year I was on the road, and even before that at times. So you drive alone, you're putting yourself through the ringer, 4 or 5 hour drives every single night. You're flying in on Thursdays into LA, you're partying on you know, Wednesdays when you land in LA, and let's be real, I live in the hills. And, you know, I get 1 day off out of the week. I'm going to hang out. Thursdays, I'm catching a red eye out of LA to any show on the East Coast. I have 1 day off that week, and that went on for 8 months. So 1 day off a week, 8 months out of the year, and booked on appearances more than any other wrestler. So they were running me dry, and it was hurting me. And I think the only thing that was getting me through it was that feeling you get when you're out there. That feeling when you're in the ring and you hear people and you're getting the response that you wanted to dictate. And it's just it's a wild, wild world, man, that wrestling world. And it'll take years off your life. Trust me, I paid for it. So it's the price of fame, though. So, you know, you enter into this lottery. When your number gets called, don't be surprised.
So my question, I guess, would be, what do you think killed the CWC to the 205 Live crowd? Was it the constant changeover of the ropes and ring mat? What could bring back the 205 Live Cruiserweights to what they were in the CWC, since you wanted to go to 205 and work the hardest schedule possible?
I think the reason why I wanted to work 205 Live was because if you look at the locker room when I was in NXT, it was pretty much the same as when you get to the main roster. And I never wrestled before I got to the WWE elsewhere. So if you look at the CWC, that's a whole locker room of guys I've never even locked up with, right? And they're a locker room of guys who have to sit at home every single week on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays and they get flown to TV on Monday Night Raw and Tuesday SmackDown, so they only work 2 days a week. And wrestlers, we get paid to wrestle. So if you're not working, you're not making money, right? So these guys are only working 2 days a week. Well, despite any preconceived notions in what you heard, I've had a great relationship with the cruiserweights in the locker room, and they'll definitely probably tell you the same thing. The reason why is because when I came into the cruiserweight division, it was a plan that I had manifested literally on paper, talked to Vince about with the music and the opportunities to do our own live tour. When a guy like me comes into the Cruiserweight Champion division, people are going to be skeptical. The guys in the locker room, the fans. I was sure as shit. I knew exactly what I was doing. So I sat them down and I talked to the boys for the first time. I said, thank you for letting me be here. We're going to go on tour. We're going to have our own tour, and you guys are going to get work on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. And, you know, we're going to make Cruiserweight division great again. Jobs. No, I'm playing. So it was about putting food on the plate for these guys, and that's how you earn their respect. I earned their respect because I already had it based on what I was doing out there, getting reactions in a certain. But then I earned their respect more when I kept my word, and the ratings went up. People got paid more money, literally, like those heel tactics. A lot of times, heel tactics on TV, as I learned from Michael Hayes, P.S. Michael Hayes, you ever heard of him? He's a WWE producer. He told me when I was first becoming a heel, something I was pretty much aware of, but he said, just take facts and ooze them out of your mouth cocky, right? So how does that work? So if I'm the champion, that makes me the best in the world. That's a fact. It doesn't matter what you think. You think I can't wrestle? I'm the best in the world right here, and that's what this thing says. That's a heel, right? Well, as a heel, I'd be out there with a microphone saying, hey, the 205 ratings just went through the roof. And I'm not lying. Why don't you go look at the Forbes article that just came out last week, because the network buys are going up. And then the guys in the locker room, they're going on a cruiserweight tour for the first time ever. People had faith in the vision because confidence is contagious, make no mistake about it. But when you believe in yourself so much like I do, other people start to believe in you too. So that's it. And were you asking about what's going on with it right now, though? I've never watched 205 Live or a Cruiserweight show, not even when I was on it, ever. And I've never watched myself, ever. I've never seen my WrestleMania match, ever. I don't watch myself. It's the Roddy Piper school of thought. If it felt good out there, don't watch it. All right? That's what I did, and it worked. Other guys, they sit there on Twitter and Instagram directly after their matches. They read the comments. They battle back. They block people. I didn't read anything that anyone ever wrote about me. I never Googled my name, ever. I went to work and I had a job, and I just did that job. And I know that's hard pressed for a lot of people to believe, but maybe that's why you get a cup of haters. I don't know. But, you know, for me, I was having the time of my life, and if it felt good, I didn't watch it. If something bad happened in the ring, or there was a mess up, or something happened, I would watch that back. If I had a really bad match, I'll watch that back. But you know what? I never had a really bad match, so.
Thank you.
Never had a really good one either.
During your WrestleMania match, were you aware the Hardys coming back, or were you just as shocked as everybody else?
You see that picture of me when the Hardys came out? Anybody ever seen that still frame of me? No, I knew the Hardys were coming back. We found out earlier that week. To be honest with you, Gallows knew first, and Gallows is my boy, so he told me. And then the company told us like 4 days before. And then we had 2 secret rehearsals before Mania. But also, mind you this, going into Mania, the whole lead up was for me and Cass to become champions. That was the booking. And going into the match, I knew in my mind, if that was the case, that I was a dead man. Look at the landscape. Sheamus, Cesaro, Cass, and Gallows and Anderson. Who here is going to take the craziest bump in this match? I saw the writing on the wall, and I knew I was dead, because I'm crazy. I don't know if you've ever seen what I've done on TV, but I don't give up about my body, all right? I figured I'd end up jumping off the top of a ladder, through a ladder, eating a power bomb, something crazy the world's never seen. And then you hear the Hardy Boyz get announced, and I went, yeah, I'm gonna live through this shit, because Jeff Hardy's here and he's taking the fucking bump. You know? And sure enough, Jeff took the craziest damn bump. And I was sitting there with Big Cass like, oh my God, bro.
If you can, top 5 favorite bands, artists, whatever, music.
Music now, music, that's a good. All right, so when I grew up, my dad was a DJ. So this microphone tattooed on my hand represents the microphone that my father always held. He had an old school mic. And it was funny, I was telling the YMCA guys earlier today, the village people, that, you know, I've been sitting there while my dad's out there, and, you know, he's DJing, and I'm like 12 years old. And he'd be like, all right, my assistant Eric, he didn't call me his son, you know. He'd be like, all right, my assistant Eric is about to lead you all in the YMCA. And he'd hit the damn button. And I'd run out there and I'd lead the YMCA. And I knew how to do the whole deal, the cha-cha slide, the electric slide. And that's where the microphone came from, you know what I'm saying? So my top 5 bands, I grew up having no choice but to listen to top 40 music, right? Because you go to a party, a wedding, a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, corporate event, whatever it is, they're going to play what's hot on the radio and what's had success, right? #1 hit records. You're going to hear like Moni Moni, and you're going to hear YMCA, and you're going to hear, you know, the Congo line, and whatever it may be, right? So I always, if you really think about it, that's catchphrases. So infiltrating my mind as a child, my name is Enzo Amore, and you can't teach that. I'm just writing top 40 stuff that sticks in your head. You know? So I was a DJ with my dad, and I was a DJ growing up, and my family still does it. And basically, I only listened to hip-hop. As a child, I only listened to rap. I didn't listen to any rock. If it had a guitar, it was what my dad listened to. I didn't want to listen to what my dad listened to. So I love 50 Cent, and I love G-Unit, right? And I grew up listening to Biggie Smalls and Tupac. But then when I got on the road in the WWE and you start driving around the country with a guy from Japan, Braun Strowman from North Carolina, Bray Wyatt from, you know, East Bumble, Florida, I don't know, you end up listening to new music and getting cultured. And I picked up on things that I probably would have never gotten in life. I've become a top 5 band for me, Rolling Stones. Huge fan of the Stones. When I traveled the world, I felt like a Rolling Stone. So I would listen to them when I would be on tour in the UK, and a lot of that music resonates with me with a lot of some of my memories in the business. I would say Tupac. Obviously, I got, if you noticed, Life. I didn't get Thug on the other side. It doesn't say Thug Life. It just said Life. Now I wrote Love, so Love Life. I love Tupac, the Rolling Stones, 50 Cent, G-Unit. And I like, maybe a little cliche, but maybe the Beatles here. You know, I got into them down the line too. You know, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, if we're going rock and roll. I would just throw a rock band in there that I like growing up. But yeah, man, the music for me has always been my lifeblood. My family did it, so I think it's funny when people don't see this seamless transition for me into music. And you know, mind you this, when you're 5'10", 185 pounds, and you tell people that you want to be the biggest superstar in the WWE, right? That's a metaphor. I'm not talking physically, because obviously I can't be the biggest, but As a rookie, the world introduces you and you become the #1 merchandise seller in the WWE. That makes you the most popular star in the company. I don't think that anyone in their rightful mind believed in me when I said that I wanted to do those things and I would do them, okay? So when you say that you're gonna do something and then you actually do it, you have no reason in your own mind not to believe what you're about to do. If I could do what I did in wrestling and become the #1 merchandise seller at 5'10", 185 pounds, and a star that you guys recognized, I know that I'm about to be one of the biggest stars in all of music. It's difficult because nobody's heard it yet, right? And you can base what you want on a diss track, but also mind you this, the first song that I ever dropped was a diss track, right? You don't hear diss tracks on the radio. I wasn't shooting for radio. That was a big F you know what I'm saying? So that's all that was. I look forward to the music that's about to come.
Who would be your biggest dream match to be in?
My dream match? I think I would have told you Shawn Michaels growing up. I have his heart tattooed on the inside of my arm. He was my favorite wrestler as a kid in ways that are inexplainable. Like the first time and only time I ever met Shawn as a kid, he was just at the Continental Airlines Arena doing a meet and greet. My dad brought me there, and like I would run into the arena, and I was so out of control as a kid. I would like look in the aisle, like, oh my God, there's the ring. Oh, there's toys over there, and I want every action figure they had. And then all of a sudden I ran around a corner and I see Shawn Michaels and Diesel with a line around the corner, people waiting to meet him. And I lost my mind, and my dad brought me to meet Shawn Michaels. And when I met Shawn Michaels, it was the first time maybe ever that I was speechless. I was a little kid, I went, next thing you know, I'm on his lap, pictures taken, they take me off his lap. And then all of a sudden, it registers. I'm like, no, wait, I have so much I need to tell him. Oh my God. And my dad had to drag me away. It's funny to me because when you first get into pro wrestling and you're me, I never wrestled before in my life. You want to talk about a reality check, try walking into the WWE locker room, like, hey, how you doing, everybody? Oh shit, you all hate me? Why? I didn't even do anything. You know, so like it's a world, it's a savage world, but I tried to never lose sight of that what it meant for me as a kid. And I had the keen understanding and wherewithal throughout the future that when we were in an arena, that there was a dad out there who had bill trouble, who had IRS, who had marital issues, who had, issues that are way bigger above and beyond the reality of a pro wrestling show. But in that moment, when that father is standing in that crowd and his son that's 8 years old thoroughly enjoys what he's watching, he believes wrestling's real wholeheartedly, and his hero, like a Shawn Michaels, is maybe me, Enzo Amore, that father's not thinking about his IRS, he's not thinking about his bills, he's not thinking about his marital issues. He's sitting there in that moment and enjoying it with his son, and we've given him that moment and that beautiful reprieve away from society and all the things that are overwhelming in life. They don't mean anything in that moment. And when they don't mean anything in that moment, then I did my job. And that's what I love to do. I think that so many people like to dictate who you are as a human based on what they've seen on a screen. And that's fine with me. That's the life you choose to get into. But I never wanted to mince too much of reality with fiction. You understood what your job was, and your job was to put smiles on people's faces, to give them something to think about so that they weren't thinking about the other BS that goes on in life. So, that's what being a pro wrestler is to me. It's a family ordeal. It's a generational pastime, as we would say in America. It's an American pastime, but we're in Canada. We'll call it a Canadian pastime. I mean, look at the dungeon. Look at Bret Hart. I mean, you guys, kind of paved the way here. So, I think that people take the job too seriously many, many, many times. They think that it's real. I was the easiest guy you could ever work with ever in the WWE, because while one guy, I also could get away with things that other guys could never, so I was understanding of that. If a guy doesn't ever get handed a microphone and he's meant to look like a badass, but when you punch him in the face, he falls down and he doesn't get back up, it's very difficult for him to tell that story to the crowd. I was blessed enough to have a microphone to tell my story so that when you did punch me in the face and I fell down, the people cheered for me to get back up. So my role was different, and I played my role. Know your role. And I'll never shut my mouth. My dream opponent is The Rock. That was the question. I get a long roundabout way to getting the answer to a question, don't I, guys?
Will you and Cass ever come back like the Hardy Boyz did?
There ain't enough money in the world right now to get me in a wrestling ring. All right? I've had some missed calls recently. I don't know who they were from. I'm being frank with you. I do not know who they were from. I didn't answer them. That's why. I'm so content on my last damn match being for the Cruiserweight Championship on the first ever Cruiserweight tour, and parlaying this thing into a music career that is extremely successful. My focus is so much on the music right now that I can't even fathom a world where I would get back into a wrestling ring. Beyond that, you know, me and Cass did have a falling out, so to say, after WrestleMania, after Brooklyn and SummerSlam. He tore his ACL, and I've been vocal about, you know, I thought he should finish the match. When Triple H tears his quad and he's in a sharpshooter, or Stone Cold gets pile drived and he's paralyzed, but he finishes the match with a schoolboy, or Vince McMahon runs out to the ring and breaks his back and he has to finish the seg. You know, that's the standard by which our business has been built on, is, you know, you finish the match. And I was out there in our blow-off feud and the highest ratings draw in all of 2017 when we broke up. And the payoff was that in the Barclays Center. And, you know, I said, I can forgive you, but I can never forget, right? And I do believe that. I have long forgiven Cass. I have no ill feelings towards what happened that day, animosity, and if anything, I feel bad for him, because in that moment, I had invested so much money in a guy. I thought to myself in business that if you hobble out of this arena with a torn ACL, you're made. Everything that we've ever done to this point is in a moment. And you, in my business, have to be able to recognize when that moment is. And you may never know when it is until it hits you. And it just so happens that it was for Triple H, proving he was that tough guy that you could put the title on, and if you put him out in WrestleMania in the first 5 minutes of the match and he tore his quad, he was still gonna finish the match, because there's 45 more minutes and there's 80,000 fans going nuts, and Vince McMahon needs to know his money and his investment is safe, all right? That's my business. So I looked at a guy who I've invested my whole life and career in, an SAWFT soft bro, let's spell that out, and you could have been a damn monster in a moment and made your career so that when you came back, they pushed you towards a title. They pushed me, I already have a title. Now we're really making money for the rest of our lives in this business. Instead, things did boil out the way that they did, and I'm not reluctant to say, like, you know, that I regret, you know, giving him a mouthful and tweeting at him, and but that's who I am as a human. You see, I never talk shit about anybody, and that's why I drove alone. In the wrestling business, you drive around in a car and you talk about your match, or you talk about other people and you bury them and this, that, or the other. When I said bada boom, realest guy in the room, how you doing? The people can feel what's real. You can't fool everyone every week. You cannot fool them. You could tell when I said something, I believed it. And because I believed it, you believed it. And it was because I was not telling a lie. Bada boom, realest guy in the room. You can hate me, but I'm never gonna lie to your face. I'm never gonna politic, and I didn't have to kiss anyone's ass to get here right now. Because the first time I was ever handed a microphone on TV, John Cena asked me to come out in the ring with him. I spelt out SAWFT soft. He said, "What did you just say?" And he repeated it for me. Okay, SAWFT, SUF, the whole crowd in Orlando says it. The next week, I'm sitting backstage, not booked for a match at NXT, and the whole crowd, the whole 4-hour show is going, SUF, 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 SUF. They had no choice but to put me on TV. They had no choice. So much so that they put me in the dark seg after TV with a microphone when the show was over against Ryback. I never had to kiss anyone's ass, and I didn't even know what the hell was going on. I just went out there and did my little deal and didn't realize what was going on, and everybody's repeating this, and oh my God, this is great. I don't know. It was a weird situation that was a once in a lifetime and can never happen again. I mean, if John Cena wasn't there that day that I debuted, and he didn't ask me to come out in the ring, and I didn't spell out soft, I wouldn't be here, right? I was told I was going to be fired a week before that happened. So, you know, like, I can't dictate the way that things happened and where I ended up, but I have faith that this is all a plan. Somebody's pulling strings. I don't know who Geppetto is, but I'm blessed. And I'm walking around with a halo. You don't think that I'm blessed. I'm standing right here, right? Like, hey, you know what's crazy, actually? You know, yesterday was the best day of my life. Yeah, you wouldn't believe what happened. You want to know what happened? I'll tell you what happened. I woke up today, and today's better than yesterday. Can't even believe it. True shit. If you walk into every day of your life saying, you know, today's the best day of my life, you say that enough times, you believe it. And when you believe it, other people believe it. This is that confidence, contagious thing I spoke about. You manifest your own life, you put the words out into the atmosphere, and I said it, I'm the realest guy in the room, how you doing? Because I was real, and I didn't talk about other people behind their back. So when I drove alone, I talk to myself, because I write music. I'm a rapper, right? When you're rapping, what are you talking about? You're manifesting, right? You're just saying something out loud so many times because you're rehearsing it over and over again that it becomes words that go out into the world, and then all of a sudden your thoughts are words, your words become actions, and the distance between dreams and reality is action.
So just wondering, do you follow the current product now? And second part is, do you feel when you were there, anybody on the roster, NXT or WWE, was underutilized?
Absolutely. I can go down that wormhole of underutilized people and things like that if you wanted to. As far as, what was the first question? Do I follow it now? I stopped watching wrestling about 5 months into my debut on the main roster in 2016. I never watched my WrestleMania match, like I said. I never watched what I did. And the only time I watch something is if somebody asked me if something happened or if I did something bad. I thought the best way for me to stay fresh in my mind was to ixnay it when I stepped away from it, to focus on the other things. And when you get knocked out cold on TV like I did, and your mother's crying and people think you're dead, you start putting your eggs in a different basket right then there. That week you wake up and you go, oh wait, this wrestling thing could end tomorrow. What am I gonna do next? So while I was a wrestler on the road and other people sat in the locker room, you heard that I wasn't in the locker room, that was a choice. I didn't sit in the locker room, that was a work, but I didn't sit in the locker room because I was writing my music. So if we're sitting in the locker room, what do? We just banter, we just shoot the shit. It's locker room, right? Locker room talk. Well, to me, that was valuable time that was wasted. 4 or 5 hours before a show starts, I'm locking myself in a closet with headphones on, listening to beats and writing music. And all of that music that I'm writing, if I write 100, 200, 300, 400 pages in a couple weeks, I guarantee you I pull at least 20 pages of one-liners and use them on TV in the WWE. So I was a writer, and I wrote more than the writing staff did there. I don't watch anything. I don't watch wrestling. And I really, really, really got into wrestling in 2015, and I watched the NWA from 1978 to like 1984, every episode that aired. So I watched it in sequence, Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, and the best promos that were ever cut in our business back then by Ric Flair. And you see those old NWA shades, the title, you know, dude, on fire. I spent more money on spilt liquor. You know, he didn't write that down. I'm a writer. I'll be the first one to tell you. I'm a writer. Rick wasn't writing that shit. He was living it.
All right, folks, we got time for one last question for Enzo. Does anybody have one last question?
So with your new record, and just producing and everything, what kind of method did you go through to get to that, how do you say it, to that neutral ground where you can just produce your own music and whatnot?
Repeat that?
Yeah, so he's asking with the new record coming out, what methods did you use to get to where you're at now with the album?
All right, so since we got some ears here, you know, basically I had a buddy named Spiff TV who directed Drake's music videos and French Montana. And because of what I did in wrestling with the Jordans and the swag and the clothes I wore, I garnered a lot of eyes that were from a niche audience and the hip-hop eccentric crowd. And through that gathering of people in a network, I was able to string together a bunch of beats and open up a record label. So I opened up a record label, Real1 Records, 2 years ago. After I got the concussion, I bought a bunch of beats from Grammy-nominated producers and spent about 200 grand on all the music. And then I just put them away for a rainy day. And as the time ticked on, I would go into my beat library of music and I would write. And there's songs on this album that's coming out. I think it's special to me because it's all written by me, all produced by me, and the only person that was in the studio was the person hitting the record button with me. So no one else is involved in the making of this music at all in any shape or form. So it is completely real and organic to what I was going through at the time. And I have a timeline of the music and when I wrote it, and where I was at in the world and where I was wrestling and what storylines I was going through. And I have a song on there called King. It's an intro. And when you listen to King, if you listen to the intro, it's going to sound like I wrote this song after I was fired, where I wrote it before I got fired. And it sounds like a manifestation of getting fired. The other songs on the album, I wrote Live a Little, Laugh a Lot. I have a song on there. Someone else is grateful with less than what you've got. Fear have not, live a little, laugh a lot, right? Sounds a lot crazier than that, but I wrote that song while me and Neville were coming back from Braun Strowman's parents' house in North Carolina. In his Midwestern family in Kentucky. Me and Neville had the most beautiful drive. It was sunny outside. We were feeling great. And I wrote that song. So that song means something to me that day. I wrote a song called House in the Hills. It's actually called the Realist Outro. So it's the last song on the album. And this song is significant because I was forced to write it. I didn't have a choice in the matter because when I showed up to work at Monday Night Raw in Anaheim, California, I was handed a script and the only words on it were basically, bada boom, realest guy in the room, how you doing? And then I read the script and Mike the Miz was about to air me out and put all my dirty laundry on camera and they were going to turn me heel, right? But they didn't tell me they were turning me heel. The only thing they told me, the guy who writes his own script every week, was you ain't saying shit on that microphone. You ain't writing, and if you want to keep your job, you better not say anything. So I was so mad that I was about to quit. I was walking backstage, fired up, literally about to quit. I mean, I'm not joking. I was this close to quitting. I knew that I was about to get aired out, and I'm the best on the microphone in the frickin' business, and you're not letting me say something back? I'll freestyle something on this guy out here based on the chance of the crowd. That's how confident I feel. You won't let me. I was so mad. So what happened? We go through the main event that night. It was when Miz was pregnant with his wife, and I was laying in the ring, and I said, you need to ask that question, not who's your daddy, not how you doing, it's who's your daddy. To Maurice. So I get on a chopper that night directly after Raw, dropped us off. We were in the main event, so we had to go to New Zealand that night. So I get on a chopper from Raw, and it drops us off on the runway in LAX. From LAX, I was flying to New Zealand, and I was so mad that I couldn't write on TV that night that I wrote this song. Because I had so much energy and there was so much I wanted to get out that I wrote this song that's now titled the Realist outro on my album, House in the Hills. And a few lyrics in the song I'll give you right now. I say, Muscles Marinara, I'm a boss. I'm the CEO, the manager, the COO, the janitor. IRS can kiss my ass, bitch. I write that off. All right? It's because it's true. I own the rights to every single thing that I did, which most people in records and in music will tell you is impossible to do. But if Vince McMahon is investing more money in Enzo Amore than any other pro wrestler in the WWE, and that's the smartest man I know and the best businessman I know, I'd be stupid not to invest the little money he's given me back into myself. And he respected that, and that's why we were going to do the music together. But in order to have that conversation with Vince McMahon, you have to own all the music. So that's what I did. I took the wrestling money, and I dumped it into my music, and because of great fans I'm blessed to have, that music is going to buy my parents the house that I couldn't get while I was a pro wrestler in the WWE.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, let's thank Enzo.
Thank you for watching the Convention Junkies coverage of the 2018 London Comic Con. Please like, comment and subscribe to see more, and let us know below what you think of this video. If you would like to help us with future projects, please visit our Patreon page.